But this is probably the Sony's biggest launch of the year. I've been shooting for a week now, and honestly I think Sony got it right, for the most part. This isn't going to be one of these videos where we pixel peep everything and going through a 20 minutes rolling shutter tests. There are plenty of videos already doing that, so shout out to Gerald Dundan, you can check his video here. Instead, I just wanted to share my honest experience shooting with the FX5, what I generally like, what I generally don't like, and whether it's actually worth upgrading for the FX3. But first, if you're new here, my name is Nicola. I'm a filmmaker based in Italy and founder of the Filmmakers community where we share our passion for filmmaking. Before we jump in, quick disclaimer, Sony didn't pay me to make this review, I don't get to keep the camera, and these are my honest thoughts and opinions about my experience. The easiest way I can explain this FX3 is like Sony took a Sony Venice and Burano, shrink it down to the size of the FX3 and just upgraded the whole internal. Or maybe to put it in a simple way, feels like the FX3 just grow up. And honestly, in many ways, I think I prefer it much more than the FX6. So Nick, what is actually like to use the camera? Well, if you already use the FX3, you'll probably feel right at home. The body is almost the same size, the grip feels familiar, and after a few minutes, you already forget that you're using the brand new camera. One thing that I immediately started to appreciate is the new 3.5-inch screen. I know it doesn't feel huge on paper, but after a week using it, going back to using the FX3 feels significantly smaller. It's definitely contrastier and brighter, and finally it has the new 4-axis mechanism screen that is actually such a relief to shoot with, to be honest. And Sony finally brought the fast color vector scope on Instagram, so I don't have to rely anymore on external monitors. The biggest difference is probably the new menu system. Sony moved away from the classic alpha style menu system and instead they brought the Cine Alta from the FX6, Burano and Venice. So if you're coming from the FX6 like myself, you'll probably be a little bit confused at first, because I was constantly looking for a setting that has moved someone else. But once you get to understand the logic, you get used to and it's completely fine. On the other hand, if you already worked with the FX6 and higher, you will probably feel right at home. The biggest surprise for me was definitely the inter-recording in RAW. If I'm being completely honest, I never felt limited by the FX3 codec. But whenever you're shooting a scene with difficult lighting, strong highlights, deep shadows, you're really pushing the limits with the grade, and having a 16-bit RAW internal recording gives you such an extra flexibility. And in the full honesty, I was actually a little bit concerned about the file sizes given the cost of the CFast Express nowadays, but Sony took it further and invented the C1 and C2 and then the new internal RAW codecs that are far more compressed. You'll be surprised that those files are actually very manageable. Another feature I absolutely love about this camera is now it has an OpenGate 3x2. Coming from Fujifilm, there's one thing that I missed so much over the years, and it was actually the OpenGate. I know a lot of people doesn't care really about the OpenGate, but honestly, the flexibility about resizing files without losing so much information is honestly very useful for me at least. But for me, the biggest challenge was shooting on anamorphics. Having access to the full sensor gives you so much more flexibility, and I'll probably end up using much more than I thought. And of course, Sony didn't even forget the frame rate, and now it shoots up 5K 120, which is a lot. It's one of those features where you don't find yourself using it quietly often, but once you do, it's really nice to have it. The autofocus is another area that I noticed an improvement. From the FX3 to the FX2, I've noticed a huge difference, and I was having already a high expectation about the FX5, which uses the new AI chip processor, I don't really know. But the biggest difference is actually in a low light. I've noticed such a huge difference, and honestly, I don't really mind it at all. One of the biggest disappointment for me, it was honestly the 32-bit flow audio. I know, it's finally here, but only through the XLR handle. Personally, I would have loved to have this 32-bit internal recording without needing extra accessories. For solo filmmakers, I know this tiny improvement would have made a huge difference. Another thing that really annoyed me, it was whenever you change the codecs or the frame rates, the camera rebooted itself. So whenever you're on a set and you need to change the frame rates or codecs, just bear in mind that you need a few extra seconds for this. I don't really want to talk about the new battery. It is an improvement, but it's not just big of a deal. So, should you buy it? Well, it depends. If your priority is speed, you are shooting events, you're shooting a wedding, you need fast turnaround work, I wouldn't recommend it, to be honest. But if your priority is image quality, you're shooting documentary, you're on set, and overall you're looking for the best of the best image quality, I think this camera is really made for you. It is a big jump from the FX3. I think if you need a camera that pairs with your Venice and Sony Burano, I think this makes a lot of sense. Yes, it is a little bit slower to operate, but in exchange you're getting a significantly better image quality and flexibility. So, what's my final thoughts? After spending a week with the FX5, I clearly got an idea of what the camera is for, and I definitely don't see it as a replacement of the FX3, whether it's just the next step. But Sony clearly wanted to bring more of the high-end cinema experience coming from the FX6 Burano and Venice in a compact form factor for filmmakers that I already love. And honestly, I think they did a really good job. It's not a small upgrade, it's a meaningful upgrade. Is it perfect? No, I don't think so. There are still things that Sony can improve, but if you're someone who's starting to outgrow the FX3 like myself and you want the best possible image quality without moving to a much larger cinema camera, yeah, I think this is a good option. I genuinely think that the FX5 is definitely one of the most interesting camera launch of this year. Okay, we've come to the end. I genuinely wanted to share what was my experience shooting with the FX5. I didn't want to go much more into details about sharing specs and shit. I think that's you can find on other YouTube channels. If you genuinely like this video or you share different opinions about this camera, please let me know in the comments. Until the next time, thanks for watching.